And that's when I figured out Dubai chocolate is not quite my thing.
And with that, everybody, we are back with another exciting episode of Season 9 of the UnDisrupted Podcast. Yeah, that was an interesting lead in there, Adam. But I have a more interesting-ist question, I guess, for you for our opening debate. Of course, we always like
shoot, what you got?
Yeah, the hard-hitting questions here, folks. We take them all on, and, it's been an interesting year. But for this, we're going to start with a little bit of levity. And I want to know who's the GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes to one-name celebrities. So in other words, you say a name and it just elicits immediately the thought of this person. Like they just own the name. Give me a couple.
Hey, you know what? Here's the thing about owning that name. Anybody else who's named after that person or that uses that name again, people know, oh, are you named after this person? Or is this where it came from? And honestly, this is one that just pops in my head. There's a couple. And they're all entertainers in music. So when I hear the name like Elvis, I know it's Elvis Presley, but it's like when you hear Elvis, it's going to get an emotion out of people, whatever that is, one way or the other. You hear Elvis, you know Elvis. When you hear the name Prince, I don't, you have to say Prince Henry, Prince Charles. No, when I say Prince, I'm talking about the Man in Purple, artist formerly known as, I'm talking about Paisley. You're talking about Prince when I hear Prince. When I hear Prince, when I hear Elvis, those are names that just stick out in my mind as that is the only one. It's the only one Elvis, only one Prince. What say you, Hooker?
Well, I was going to say mine was the symbol, but it was the artist formerly known as Prince. No, that's a different. That's when you know you're also big, when you're just like a symbol. You don't even become a thing. There's a lot of different ways I could go. My first thought was Michael, but then I started thinking, geez, people could take Michael so many different ways. Like when I say Michael, I think Michael Jackson, but I know that Michael Jordan could be another one. So that one's too tricky. But then that got me into basketball. And of course, then I thought Kobe. Kobe to me is another one where you're just like, and he was someone who transcended NBA too. And also, I guess, a style of beef, right? Kobe beef. But yeah, so to me, Kobe was one that was like, when I hear that word, and then I thought, you're married to a one-name celebrity. When I think of Christina, who do you think of when I say Christina? Not necessarily your wife, but who? Like, there's only one musical person I could think of.
Yeah,
but
I think of Christina Aguilera.
The same here, ex-Tina, right? She got the X and the Tina. So I don't know. There's lots of different ways we could go with this. We're trying to steal them all before we invite up our guests. But I will tell you, in the world of ed tech, there are a very few one-word celebrities, and we have one on the show today. I know of a dean. If I say dean, you could probably think of the dean I'm talking about. If I think of a Dembo, you could think of who I'm talking about. But when I say Rafranz, there's only the one, the only one. Ladies and gentlemen, yes. So number one, Rafranz Davis. Thank you, Rafranz, for joining us today on UnDisrupted.
You are too kind. I don't even know how to respond to that.
I flummoxed her. Now Rafranz is gone. I didn't give her titles. You're content manager at LinkedIn. You've gone through the gamut of ed tech roles. In fact, we were just reminiscing before the show about how all three of us at one point or another were directors in school districts, and now we're all in these different strange positions. And here we find ourselves again recording on the UnDisrupted Podcast. So give the folks out there a little update. Tell us a little bit about that role. First of all, what is that about? Content manager.
It is honestly a direct, I guess, a step up correlation. I don't even know the word to name it, but it's really closely related to the work that we used to do in terms of professional learning. I started my career, obviously, in teaching high school math. Then I was like, you know what? I want to go into training. So I started doing the work of getting into training, and then moved to another district as a strategist, then as a technology specialist, then as a director role. And this role, I'm at LinkedIn as a content manager. And what I do now is that I work with subject matter experts to create instructional content for LinkedIn Learning. So I'm now in the space of adult learning. So I'm still in learning. I'm just in a different frame of it.
And I forgot to ask you, your one word celebrity. Who's your one?
I was waiting on you to say Beyonce or obviously.
We're leaving that one to you. We're leaving that one.
Yeah,
it's too easy. Kendrick would be another one.
Well, I had a plan for that because Kendrick, we know him as Kendrick Lamar, but he's also like K-Dot. So that's his one word. There's Rihanna, there's Aaliyah, there's Adele. Eminem. Come on, I expected one of you.
Man, just look at. Well, yeah, and those of you that know Rafranz know that she is into the music, especially the K-pop. But
Yeah.
so I
Which
figured
totally surprised me when I saw that you were a K-pop stan. I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
No. I'm not into all K-pop. I'm only into BTS.
okay, BTS. Correction. A BTS fan. There we go. There we go.
Let's set the record straight. That's a big difference.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. I learned, honestly, you are the source of all my BTS content, if I'm being honest. So, but you know what? That means you're technically are bringing it to the masses, because without you, I would have no idea about any of it, and I don't know the name. I can kind of recognize a couple of the names of the group, and I know it's a big group, but yeah, 7 of them, right?
That's good, Carl. Yes.
Okay, I guess.
You know what? I think I got into this, I know. It was 2017, 2018. We were just in the middle of like a political firestorm then, and I needed something to get my mind off of all the news, and that was it. And then I got there and never left. So it's been good. And honestly, I probably would not have changed job roles had it not been for jumping into that space, because you meet and connect with so many different people across so many different fields that it really inspires you to look at your own life and say, am I happy? Is this really where I want to be? And then kind of redirect your thinking into figuring out, the space you need to be in life and to work that way to get there. So I don't know if other fandoms experience that, but that's what it was for me. And I'm happy that you at least know there are 7, but I'm more happy with just the changes that I've made in my life, just because of stepping into areas of interest instead of just always focusing on work.
I love it.
And that brings up, some really interesting points going to this whole adult learning concept. Because the adult learners that we have right now, we were all just talking about our ages. I'm not going to divulge any of that right now, but we were all talking about our ages, and we were in that same space. But the learners that we are working with are our peers. The way that they need to learn and their career changes are totally different at this point than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
5 years
we're
ago.
we're seeing all these job changes, these career changes. We are that group of people that are talking about having multiple careers and multiple avenues that we're looking to earn our resources and money and different things in. So let me ask you this. So saying all that, working in this adult learning space, what has been like the biggest difference working with adult learners at this scale at LinkedIn versus working with adult learners like in districts as educators?
That's a great question. I think the biggest difference is that you're working with people who, school districts pretty much have like a standard set of things you need to learn. Most of it is typically built around whatever the programs that are happening within schools. When you get to the point of upskilling in the corporate workspace, it's different in that you have multiple kind of learning steps happening. You have people that are trying to upskill within their job roles. You have people that are trying to upskill for their next gig, their next plays, what we kind of call it, whatever their next job is going to be. You have people that are just learning for the heck of learning. And so when you think about it, that there might be some similarities when it comes to K-12, but for me, I think it's the way that I look at things. For example, AI, everyone is kind of embedding AI into what they do. When I worked in K-12, even when training teachers, my first thought was on all of the different protections that needed to be in place and who was going to be impacted and how that data was going to be used. In this space, it's different. I don't think about that as a forefront. I got ethics, obviously. I went through ethics training. Ethics is always a part of that, but I'm also thinking of what does this mean within my job and how do I embed these tools within my job? I feel like it's more job focused learning versus all of the other things that you had to think about in terms of children. Even when working with adults, that I don't have that same, I don't want to call it baggage, but I don't have those same thoughts that are lingering in my mind ahead of any decisions or thoughts that I make, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that brings me to this kind of idea too. And I had a debate with Adam and I have had a debate with a couple folks on the show about this, about the differences between, because you used to be a teacher too, you used to teach math, so teaching children pedagogy versus adults andragogy. Do you see, what are the biggest differences you see in those two areas, and what are the things that are the same?
That's a good question. First of all, props to you both, because I'm used to doing a podcast where I'm provided the questions up front. So
we never do that.
You
Sorry.
don't do
Yeah,
that.
we throw it at you.
I love it. I love it. But you
That's
clearly,
because we usually invent them about an hour before the show, just
no,
so you know.
you clearly thought this through. No, but just in terms of students, I feel like you have to think about all the different directions that they can come from in terms of learning. Teaching math, especially, because some of my students, I taught geometry. Some of my students, it was like they never took algebra, or they completely missed all of middle school, or they spent the greater part of 1 year in ISS or DAEP. So there are gaps that I have to fill in terms of my instruction that are very different. When it comes to adults, it's like there's certain areas that you have to kind of pre-fill in when you're addressing a new concept. But I feel like we have more of a leeway to say, okay, this is going to be specifically for, people who have already mastered these skills. This is more of an intermediate advanced course. Let's do this. If they need those other skills, they can go back and take this course ahead of this, and we can address that. So I feel like we have a bit more room to kind of start learning where at a certain point where we want to, and then redirect in other spaces. Whereas in K-12, you don't have, especially in a face-to-face learning environment, you don't have that flexibility. You have to just plan ahead of, I know good and well they don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. So I have to include X, Y, and Z first before I can get to this next part.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So let me ask you this. Bringing that K-12 mindset and the space you're in now with adult learning, and for those out there thinking about adults, we're adults, but also let's turn back or go back to our early adults, these 17, 18-year-olds that are graduating, coming out of high school, that are looking at this college career workforce. Like when they're in this space, like what resources and professional learning opportunities are you working on, or does LinkedIn have for these students where they're able to take those geometry class skills? The kids are like, hey, when am I ever going to need this again? But how are they able to kind of take those classroom skills and then apply it or build upon those using something like LinkedIn to get ready for this career workforce space that we want them all to be productive, high functioning Americans in?
Well, I can answer that even outside of the lens of LinkedIn. I can't really speak to what LinkedIn has in development or working, but I can tell you this. In my last years as a director, I remember mentoring our robotics program and working with students who were in CTE courses. CTE in high school is like the gateway to professional certifications. And so I never realized the importance of CTE as much so as experiencing that time with robotics and working with those CTE teachers, and then also being in this space. The first content that I managed when I started LinkedIn was AEC, Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. And it was cool, going through the course planning, because I recognize a lot of those programs from robotics and those students learning that. So I would say that first and foremost, one of the things that I took from that is you can start seeking professional certifications early. You don't have to wait until you get into the professional space to do it. I've seen high school students earn tech certifications that they were able to work part-time jobs in the tech sector and go to college in ways that I never even realized that, first of all, that you could do, or that secondly, the importance of doing that. The other thing is, especially at the university level, we have a lot of partnerships with different universities, and a lot of them offer LinkedIn memberships to students. You can go on LinkedIn and take courses whenever you want. You do it in high school. You can go on LinkedIn and take courses whenever you want. We have certifications that can go online and do that. There are certifications within other companies that can do that. So I would say seek out your career department at your college and see what they're offering. Sometimes it might be membership to LinkedIn. Sometimes it might be access to additional certifications that are free for students that would cost you as an adult. And if you can do those things and start building those skills, you develop multiple avenues of career placement, not even just career placement, of additional job opportunities that I wish that I knew when I was in college, or that when my kids were in college, that I could point them in that direction as well.
I just started thinking, I've got a 16-year-old. I wonder if I should start her LinkedIn profile now. Or is it, I'm almost like, is it too late? I mean, she's going to be a junior next year, but she's already starting to do a lot of, it's almost like a place you could use as a portfolio to really build those skills, but also to showcase what you've learned for that next employer, possibly out of college or out of high school even. What is there what is your advice for that? Yeah.
Well, I would say I would recommend that when she's ready to do it. But the other part is just being connected to professional communities. LinkedIn as a platform to me is very different. Not to me, to I think everybody. It's very different than like a Facebook or X or all the other spaces.
Yeah.
Pick one.
It was intimidating for me at first, just logging in and seeing all of the things that people were posting, just graphics about certain advances in tech or some job recommendations. When I was looking for a job, so many people were posting about these are things teachers need to do if they're looking to get a job outside of teaching. And I felt intimidated by that, even though I had what I thought kind of built my portfolio of just thought leadership and learning to put myself in a better position. It's an extremely difficult task of applying those skills in real time. So, I mean, I think that just getting used to how people talk in a professional sense is good. Connecting with people, being able to ask questions of a tech lead at Google that you would not have talked to at any other time. They're posting on LinkedIn. You can respond and ask questions and just sort of get used to connecting and talking to people. So I think that's good as long as they're ready and prepared for that.
And not using Gen Alpha language like Skibbity, Ohio, Toilet Riz, low key mid, whatever other word.
6-7.
Makes sense. Yeah, 6-7. They hate it when I say that now, Adam, by the way. They're like, Dad, you're making it more cringy. I was telling Adam, you came out with it was like a podcast and a newsletter all at the same time. I feel like it was Learning Out Loud. And recently I was looking at one, I think you posted it a few days ago. And again, we're recording this in March of 25, but someone may be listening to it later. So you can go back and find it. But you were talking about AI as a career growth tool, which I thought was an interesting lens, because I see a lot of people talking about it as, it's an automating tool. You can use it to automate your life and all about automation. But you're kind of taking a different spin on it. Explain your thoughts on AI. Again, we've gone 20 minutes before we said the word AI, so we did pretty good today. But what are your thoughts on it? This is as a career growth tool. Yeah.
So I, as most people that know me know, have an artist in my family, my nephew Braden, who is very much so like anti-AI in the creative sense. And it's infuriating to see people create AI art and call it like, I'm an artist, I'm an AI artist. And there are people who, can prompt the heck out of something and get it to do really interesting things. Before a person who is a working artist, it's insulting. It honestly is. So he doesn't even use tools that when he does digital art, doesn't even use tools that have AI as a part of the capabilities. He chooses not. He's Procreate all the way, because Procreate doesn't utilize AI in that creative sense, and he loves it. So I mentioned that to say that I feel like I've been very influenced just from a creative standpoint on having his point of view in my ear at all times. So when I write and I write, I do not utilize AI to do my writing for me. I've had a friend who had a blog, and she would put co-written by AI on it. And then like the whole blog, you read it, you're like, AI wrote this.
That's AI. Yeah.
I have no reason. There's no reason whatsoever for me to want to read this. And people can have their own opinion on that, but that's just the way I feel. On the other sense of that, I think just as a large language model and its ability to take, I think manipulate, I don't want to say manipulate, but the co-matching of phrases and to kind of put things together in a sense that would take, probably days, honestly, in terms of manual labor of doing it. I do think it's useful in that sense. So when I utilized it, I was utilizing it to compare skills across jobs. So like the skills that I had from teaching and all the degrees of teaching that I had that are just publicly accessible on my LinkedIn profile, to the skills that I've now put in place as my job role now. AI has been like just really cool at looking at those skills and matching up like what that skill progression has been, and kind of qualifying it into like certain domains of learning that I would not have been able to. I don't think I would have been able to do without probably paying for a program to do it. Which is ironic because I kind of pay for a program to do it. But so just being able to do that, and then to have AI to be able to comb all of its resources to look at other career pathways and see where those different skills are applicable. It's sort of like it's matching keywords and phrases into something that makes sense. So I felt like that to me was a great use of AI. Now I do like, because I also have ADHD, very much so, and my ADHD in terms of writing, just sometimes I make a lot of like mistakes. I don't have to go back and check it. So
Same.
Sometimes if you're using AIs, I might let it help me, even if you're using Grammarly. Grammarly is powered by AI to help it kind of to adjust some of the phrasing, but I do not use it to write. I don't even usually take its advice on what I need to change. I'll change it still to I don't want to. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. I like to keep my writing in my voice, in my sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a slippery. It's easy because like we get advice all the time. I don't say we get advice. We utilize AI even in work, and they'll be like, "Oh, you can use it to write your emails," and I'm like, no, I don't want her to write my emails. I want my emails to be mine. But like we have this form letter that we have to send whenever we have a course approved and we're getting ready to like hand it off to a producer to create it. And usually I would have used like Autocrat on Google to go in and, hey, put in the name,
auto-generate,
blah, blah, blah. And now I'll use AI to be like, hey, here's my letter. I'm not spending the time because I don't even have access to Autocrat anymore. Here's my letter. Here's the instructor's name. Here's the title. Here's the course. Go put this in and redo it. That like but the writing is still the format letter that we've been given. The only thing the AI is doing is going to look for certain words and replace it. So I mean, I try to use it in ways like that, and not in. I don't have it create courses for me. That's like ridiculous. I don't have it go do any of the work that should come from a creative human. I think you still need the human component in everything that we do. It can't be all AI.
Exactly.
Autocrat, man, you're bringing me back to my days with the Autocrat. Sent out the iPad Palooza certificate to every person that signed up to register for the event. Whoa, I need to go find that.
You don't have to do that anymore. You can just put in an example, write the prompt, and AI will do it all for you.
Auto send it, yeah. Okay.
Let me ask you this. Let's see if I can ask this question and we can answer this question. We're going to fly close to the sun without burning our wings here. So as we look at the workforce and our current climate as it pertains to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we know that we look at job opportunities. We often talk about preparing our students for these careers, and this is a great way to change their families, outcome, trajectories. What are some things that, in your vantage point, that districts can do to provide all students these opportunities to continue to diversify the fields, workforce, these underrepresented areas? We know, for example, our numbers tell us our girls of color aren't necessarily in these tech and STEM jobs. What are some things that districts can do to kind of provide those opportunities and try to stay as safe as possible with things that are going on right now, in your opinion?
So I've been thinking about this a lot because I now have grandkids, which is very different, and actually three girls and a boy. And I remember programs that I've even created in schools to specifically for students from underrepresented backgrounds that schools can no longer do. They just can't. Black Girls Code used to be in schools every weekend. They can't. Girls Who Code, I think, is now gone. They couldn't function in that space anyway. So one thing is I would say, this is a moment in time when community partners are going to be incredibly important. You need community partners who can secure spacing in order to create spaces that I think are very necessary for things like this. Schools can, it's almost like you, instead of having a black girls code or girls who code, you just need to have a coding club and then make sure that everybody knows that the opportunity is there for everybody. I mean, you can't stop offering the chance to do these things because the mechanism that you used to do it no longer exists. It's just like if we were, I used to be a mentor for Upward Bound Math and Science program that specifically targeted students from underrepresented backgrounds. Well, now you can target students who would be first-time college graduates, most of which are going to come from underrepresented backgrounds, but you still can't say that. So you have to make sure that the opportunity and the language is clear, that everyone is there to attend. But then also make sure you do the due diligence to make sure everyone knows that they are welcome to do so. And on the back end of that, if you have community networks that can offer certain programming, you can't facilitate that, but make sure that communities know that there's space that for certain programming, even if it's through the public library. I don't know. It's a difficult thing because I think schools can probably get away with as much as their community will let them. I think our community, if we have a specific African American outreach in my hometown, it's called Unity in the Community. If our Unity in the Community went to the public library and wanted to offer specific programming, and they announced that they were going to offer specific programming, anyone who reads that knows it's Unity in the Community, and you know who that's coming from. And so I don't think that our community would have a big uproar about it, but at the same time, who knows? So I guess the long story short is you're going to have to really adjust the language in which you use to do it. Don't stop offering these experiences, but make sure that everyone knows that they are all welcome to it and not just the select few who, would typically come.
And that's why you my dog. Because you know what? We were able to shine light on it. We got close to the sun to bring the light to it, but we didn't burn up on that answer. So thank you. I appreciate that.
I will say 10 years ago on the iPad Palooza stage was still one of the most powerful talks I've ever seen given by you. And it was about, you can't be what you can't see. And it was all, and I still to this day, in fact, I found the video. I'll make sure I put it in the show notes because we still have it on YouTube. And it's to me that I don't know. It was one of those moments where and I don't usually get to watch because I'm doing all the hosting stuff, but I stopped for a minute and just stopped everything I was doing and just focused on what you were saying. And to me, again, as a privileged white male, seeing and hearing those things and thinking, what can I do to be an ally somewhere in this space without having to be like the big savior of everything? And so like, how do I make it opportunities for people that aren't historically represented on those stages? And so that was near and dear to me. I never said it. I never made it a statement. I never wrote it down anywhere where people said we have to do this. But I do think what you were just saying, Rafranz, is important. Let's make it open to everybody, but at the same time, let's make sure we're still giving people opportunity that maybe didn't, whatever that looks like, right? In a lot of different ways. So I thank you for all the work you've done. I'm starting to get teary. I don't know why, but I'm just like, I was thinking back to that moment.
You told me not to make you cry, and then like you don't.
I know, I'm making myself cry.
You don't even know. Like, I am heartbroken. I'm going to be honest. This might be where I burn the string, but I'm heartbroken just to see the tone of conversation around DEI, because it has never been about exclusion. It has always been about inclusion. And coming from someone who has been excluded quite a bit, who has been told that you don't belong in this space, or has been questioned about my ability to be in a space in ways that other people just are not. I feel like it's still important that there is somebody with a finger on the pulse on making sure that, we've got to endure the next few years, and we're just going to have to suck it up and endure it. But we need to make sure that we don't leave people out or leave people behind. And I don't know how that looks or how that work happens, but I hope that work still happens. I know our teaching conferences will be different because, state of Texas can no longer invest in certain things, which means from a microscopic level, conference organizers will no longer be able to approve certain strands of thinking and talk. And that's, it is the way of the beast, and we'll have to figure it out. But I also know that we are a resilient bunch, and a resilient bunch that come from all walks of life and all areas of learning, and we will figure it out. We just have to do it.
Innovation is born out of overcoming barriers in a lot of ways, and I think we'll just have to be innovative about it going forward. So, with you mentioned it, the political climate, everything else going on in our lives these days, we always like to ask our guests this final question, and that is, what is something you do to keep yourself undisrupted, to keep yourself balanced, just as you go through life? You know, you got the grandbabies now, you got all this other stuff. What are your things that kind of help you stay undisrupted?
I think just that. I used to live a life where every weekend was charted out for going to a conference, an unconference, a speaking gig or something. I took a step back from my own life. I actually took a step back while on stage in the middle of a keynote. And in my mind, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I finished the keynote. I will never forget just that feeling of knowing this is my last one. I didn't want to do it anymore. And it's just that I wanted to be able to spend time with my lovely grandkids. I wanted to read more. I wanted to go to concerts. You would think that you can't. I mean, I know that you have done a great job of balancing all those things, Carl, and I've seen you do it. I tried over time, but as a single mother, single grandmother, navigating all areas of life myself, you can't do all those things as much as people say that you can. So for me, it is spending time with my family, whether I like them or not. Spending time spending time with my parents. And there's some deep thinking there. Spending time with my parents, making time to do things that I would not have given up time to do otherwise. Like life is about living. And you need to do it. It can't just be just one note. I can't just make my whole life about waking up in the morning, getting on a computer, finishing up my workday. I need to go outside. I need to go to the gym on occasion. I should do that today. I need to go do things that are thought-provoking and put me around different types of people. And I think those are the things that kind of move me right now and allow me to turn off the news and not be completely inundated with insanity all the time, but to truly try to figure out who I am in this space and just be that.
Well, we appreciate you for being in this space. She's gone from K-12 to K-pop. She's not talking BTS back to school. It's the other BTS. So for V and J-Hope and RM and Jen and all the other crew,
I think what you did there.
Thank you for everything that you do and everything that you brought to education. Continue to bring to education through the wider lens now of LinkedIn. Where can people find out more about you and the work you do?
Follow me on LinkedIn if you want my professional self. On occasion on Blue Sky. I'm Rafranz everywhere. If you follow me on Twitter, you just know that's my fandom space. So I'm going to be posting links to Spotify and Apple Music and things about BTS who come out of the military in June. So I'll be back in like full swing after that. It's going to happen. Just deal. And if you don't like it, go to my professional LinkedIn. I don't care.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Rafranz. It's been good to talk to you, my friend. And all for our listeners out there, be sure to subscribe and give us a review. We'd appreciate it. We might even give you a shout out on a future show. This has been the UnDisrupted Podcast, brought to you by All for Ed. He's Adam, and you can follow him at Blue Sky at Ask Adam 3. Are we saying Blue Sky?
Yeah,
everything? Everything.
Yeah, everything, yeah. And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Hooker Tech. There we go, Hooker Tech on Blue Sky. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are better together.
And we are better
undisrupted.